The rancher did not speak at first. Silence, thick and heavy, stretched between them like a fence neither knew how to cross. He stood there with his hat lowered, shadow cutting across his face, studying her not the way others did, with mockery or fear, but with a quiet, searching patience. She was used to stares that burned, that laughed, that whispered, "She looks like a man," behind cupped hands. This stare was different. It did not strip her, it waited. She tightened her grip on the sack of grain she carried, knuckles white, shoulders squared as if bracing for the inevitable insult. Her jaw was strong, her brow heavy, her body built more for labor than softness. And the world had never forgiven her for that. Men avoided her, women pitied her, children pointed. Even her name had become a joke in town, spoken with smirks and cruel amusement. She had learned to survive by becoming harder than the stones beneath her boots. "I need help," the rancher finally said, his voice low, roughened by years of dust and solitude. "Just for the season." That was it. No jokes, no laughter, no hesitation. She blinked, certain she had misheard. Men never asked her for help unless they were desperate or cruel. "You sure?" she asked, her voice deeper than most women's. Another reason people mocked her. "Plenty of others in town." He shook his head once. "I asked them. They said no." She almost laughed then, a bitter sound rising in her chest. Of course they did, she thought. The rancher who lived alone at the edge of nowhere. The man people called strange, asking for help no one wanted to give. Two unwanted souls standing in the dust. "What about me?" she asked cautiously. "You know what they say." "I don't care what they say," he replied simply. That sentence cracked something inside her. She followed him to the ranch the next morning, expecting regret to catch up with him by noon. It never did. The land was wide and quiet, stretching under the open sky like a promise no one else had dared to keep. The house was small, weathered, honest, much like the man who lived in it. He showed her the barn, the tools, the fields that needed tending. He spoke only when necessary, but when he did, it was clear, respectful. Never once did his eyes linger with judgment. Days turned into weeks. She worked harder than anyone he had ever hired. Sunburn darkened her skin, muscles tightened under constant labor. And still she pushed herself, as if proving something, not to him, but to a lifetime of rejection. He noticed. He always noticed. When her hands bled, he left clean bandages on the table without a word. When she skipped meals, food appeared waiting for her at dusk. When storms rolled in, he made sure she was safely inside before worrying about the cattle. At night, when the wind howled across the plains, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling of the small room he had given her, wondering why this man saw her as human when the rest of the world refused to. She had built walls from cruelty and survival, but slowly, quietly, those walls began to weaken. One evening, as they sat outside watching the sun bleed into the horizon, she finally asked the question that burned in her chest. "Why me?" He didn't answer right away. He watched the sky, the way colors shifted softly, patiently, without asking permission. "Because I know what it's like," he said at last, "to be unwanted." She turned to look at him then, really look at him. The lines on his face weren't just from age or sun. They were carved by loneliness, by loss, by years of being overlooked. In that moment, she realized something terrifying and beautiful. He didn't see her as a woman who looked like a man. He saw her as someone who had survived. And for the first time in her life, she felt seen. But the world does not forgive happiness easily. Whispers from town crept closer. Judgment followed her like a shadow. And soon the rancher would be forced to choose between the quiet, bond growing in his isolation, and the cruel voice of a world that had already decided she was unworthy of love. And if this story is touching something deep inside you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because stories like this remind us that real love begins where judgment ends. Trouble began the day she rode into town alone. The rancher had warned her, quietly, without drama, that people talk when silence frightens them, and that nothing scares them more than what they don't understand. But she had lived her whole life under talk and stares. She believed she had grown immune. What she did not understand was how much it would hurt now that she finally had something to lose. The general store went quiet the moment she stepped inside. Conversations died mid-sentence. A man laughed nervously. A woman whispered too loudly. The old names returned like ghosts she had buried with her own hands. She bought supplies quickly, head down, shoulders stiff. But when she turned to leave, someone said it, clear, sharp, cruel. Looks like a man playing dress up. The laughter that followed cut deeper than any blade. She did not respond. She walked out, but the damage followed her home. By nightfall, the rancher could see it in her silence. She worked without pause, without anger, without words. That scared him more than if she had screamed. He had learned long ago that quiet pain is the most dangerous kind. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady but heavy. "They say things?" She nodded once. That was all. He felt something rise in his chest then, something fierce and unfamiliar. Not pity, not anger, protection. The next morning he rode into town with her. People noticed that too. They noticed the way he dismounted first, the way he waited for her, the way he stood beside her without shame or apology. Whispers followed them like flies, but he did not flinch. When the storekeeper hesitated to serve her, the rancher spoke, his voice calm but carrying the weight of the land itself. "She's with me." No threat, no explanation, just truth. That moment changed something, not in the town, but in her. For the first time, someone chose her publicly. Back at the ranch, something unspoken settled between them. It wasn't romance yet. It was deeper, trust. The kind that grows when two broken people stop pretending they aren't broken. She began to speak more. About her childhood. About the way her own father had wished for a son and never forgave her for not being one. About the men who laughed. The women who avoided her. The nights she prayed not to wake up looking the way she did. He listened without interruption, without trying to fix her. When he spoke of his own past, of a wife who died young, of a child buried under a tree he still couldn't look at, she understood why silence had become his companion. Love did not arrive like fire. It arrived like dawn, slow, quiet, unavoidable. One night, as rain hammered the roof and thunder shook the land, fear dragged old memories back into her bones. She stood frozen in the doorway of his room, shaking, ashamed of her weakness. He looked up, saw her face, and said only, "You're safe." 2 words. Enough to undo a lifetime of fear. She sat on the edge of the bed, not touching him, just breathing. At some point, her hand found his. He did not pull away. Neither of them slept much that night, but something healed. When the town finally confronted him, warnings, insults, accusations that he was ruining his name, he answered, with the truth they could not understand. "She's the strongest person I know," they scoffed. He didn't care. Strength, he had learned, rarely looks the way people expect. The day he asked her to stay forever was ordinary. No speeches, no knees bent. Just a quiet morning, shared coffee, and his voice steady as the horizon. "I don't want to live this life without you." She stared at him, stunned, waiting for the joke that never came. Tears followed, hot, unashamed, unstoppable. When she said yes, it wasn't loud. It was certain. Years later, people would say strange things. That love had softened her. That happiness had changed her face. They were wrong. Love had not changed her at all. It had revealed her, and the loner rancher, the man no one thought capable of loving again, found his home not in the land, but in the woman the world had refused to see. And if this story moved you, reminded you that real love does not ask permission from society, subscribe to the channel, because stories like these deserve to be told, and souls like theirs deserve to be remembered.